Hello everyone! We've reached the final part of our back panel, and that is the shaping for our armholes, back neck and shoulders. Before we begin, just make sure that your back panel measures 15 inches or 38 centimeters from the beginning of your work to just below your knitting needles. I managed to repeat the full cable pattern 3 times for my back panel. Also ensure that you are now on a right side row. First, we are going to start with the armhole shaping. Since we may not be working on the same row, the row count will be restarted for convenience's sake. For row 1 of the armhole shaping, we are going to bind off 4 stitches for those doing SM, 6 stitches for those doing LXL, or 8 stitches for those doing 2XL, 3XL. When doing a bind off, you will be working with 2 stitches at a time. The first thing is that you are going to work the first stitch in the pattern as stated. So if it's a knit stitch, then you will knit the stitch, and vice versa if it's a purl stitch. In this case, my first stitch is an edge stitch, which is also a knit stitch, so I will knit the first stitch. Now you're going to work the second stitch. So if it's a knit, you knit the stitch, and if it's a purl, you purl the stitch. Bind as another knit stitch. Now once you have the 2 stitches on your right needle, you're going to insert your left needle into the first stitch on your right needle. Pull the string of yarn that is attached to the ball with your right hand so that the second stitch sits firmly on your right needle. Now pull the first stitch over the second stitch. You've successfully bound off 1 stitch. Then you will repeat that as many times as stated in the pattern. I will show you how to do it a few more times. In this video, I might not say how many stitches to do for each size because it's very time consuming, but don't worry because I'll include the numbers on the screen. The first number would be for SM, and then the numbers in the brackets would be for LXL and 2XL, 3XL accordingly. Once you're done with the bind off, you will work in the pattern as per normal until the end of the row. If you're like me and find it difficult to figure out which stitch to do first in the more stitch section, you can count backwards from the stitch marker. For the second row, you're going to bind off 4 stitches. Then work in the pattern as per normal until the end of the row. You will have 88, 100 or 112 stitches in total after your decreases. Knit 1 stitch, then purl 2 stitches together. To do that, insert your needle into 2 stitches as if you're doing a purl stitch, then purl them both together so you will only be left with 1 stitch on your right needle. I was clearly having some difficulty here lol. Then work in the pattern as per normal until you have 3 stitches left on your left needle. Then purl 2 stitches together and end with a K1. Knitting the first and last stitches for your edge stitch. Work the rest of the stitches as in the pattern established. Knit 1 stitch, then purl 2 stitches together. Work in the pattern until you have 3 stitches left on your left needle, then purl 2 stitches together and knit the last stitch for your edge stitch. Now, to explain the change of scenery, I was watching the newly released Stranger Things Season 4 Volume 2 episodes, but I still needed footage for this video, so I thought why not film while watching it. Anyway, I hated how they ended things, but I'm obsessed with that series right now, so I'll take whatever I can get. Here's what my armhole shaping looks like. Now for my SM girlies, you are done with the armhole shaping and can continue working straight until you reach 8.5 inches or 21.5 centimeters. For those doing LXL and 2XL, 3XL, you need to repeat rows 9 and 10 a few more times. When you are done with the decreases, you should have the number of stitches stated left on your needles. Then continue working straight until you have reached the specified measurements for the armholes. And on the wrong side row. Now we're going to work on our back, neck and shoulders. Starting with the right shoulder, check that your armhole shaping meets the correct measurement. That means you measure from just below the knitting needles to the start of your armhole shaping. Before we start, count 5 stitches from the right and put a stitch marker. Then count 22, 24 or 26 stitches from that stitch marker and put a second stitch marker. These are for our shoulder shaping and then our shoulder. We will be restarting the row count again. Starting on the right side, bind off 5 stitches. Then work in the pattern until you have 22 stitches on your right needle. This should line up with where you put your stitch marker in the previous step. Place the remaining 53 stitches onto a holder for your back neck and left shoulder. If you don't have a stitch holder, you can use some scrap yarn and an embroidery needle. Thread the yarn into your needle and thread it through the stitches. You can choose to include the stitch markers into your stitch holder or omit them altogether. To keep the scrap yarn in place, I tied a knot at the end. In the end, you should have 22, 24 or 26 stitches on your right needle and 53, 59, 61 stitches on your holder. Bind off 2 stitches and work in the pattern as per normal until the end of the row. You will have 20, 22 or 24 stitches by the end. Bind off 5 stitches and work in the pattern as per normal until the end of the row. You will have 15, 17 or 19 stitches at the end. Bind off 2 stitches and work in the pattern established until the end of the row. Bind off 5 stitches and work in the pattern as per normal until the end of the row. You will have 8, 10 or 12 stitches after your decreases. Bind off 2 stitches, then work in pattern as established to end of row. By the end of row 6, you should have 8, 10 or 12 stitches. Bind off all the stitches. When you have 1 stitch left on your right needle, you are going to wrap the yarn from the right over the right needle and then under it. Using your left needle or left hand, whichever is easier, carry the first stitch over the wrapped yarn as you would in a normal bind off. Now you have a loop of yarn. Pull the loop until it measures about 3 inches or 7 centimeters, then cut the loop in half. Pull out the yarn that is attached to the ball, making sure that the other strand does not come off as well. And we are done with the shaping of our right shoulder. Return the stitches you had on your holder onto your needle. When you're done, we will be starting on a right side row. First, put in your stitch marker 26 stitches from the right. Before we start knitting, you need to add yarn to your work again. You can do that with the same method we used when changing colors for the ribbing. Now we will start from row 1 again. Bind off 26 stitches for the back neck. You will have 27, 29 or 31 stitches remaining for your left shoulder. Then work in the pattern until the end of the row. Bind off 5 stitches and work in the pattern as established. You will have 22, 24 or 26 stitches left. Bind off 2 stitches and work in the pattern until the end of the row. You will have 20, 22 or 24 stitches by the end. By the end of row 7, you will have 6, 8, 10 stitches left. Bind off all the stitches. Here's a better look at how to bind off that last stitch. Ta-da! You are done with the back panel. Congratulations! Here's a reveal of how my back panel turned out. I love how the cables look, and I think it's very accurate to the original folklore cardigan. My only regret is using this variegated yarn, so now my cardigan is very stripy instead of being ombre or speckled. That's how I thought it would have looked like when I was purchasing the yarn. Nonetheless, thanks for watching. In the next part, we will be starting on our front panels. Stay tuned for that.